First, if reporting by the Los Angeles Times today is even remotely accurate, the questions about the Anthrax attacks, which terrified this nation late in 2001, would seem tonight to have boiled down to three. First, was the anthrax sent by just one employee of our own government or more than one employee of our own government? Second, when the FBI missed an easy clue, the unreported spilling of anthrax in the federal repository of anthrax that the suspect did not report, was it incompetence or a cover-up? And third, how, if there was evidence of something askew at our biological warfare lab in Maryland as early as December 2001, why did national news organizations in this country receive supposedly reliable leaks from the Bush administration that the anthrax had originated in Iraq? Our fifth story in the countdown, there is finally a suspect in the anthrax attacks. He worked for the government's anthrax lab, and unfortunately he's dead as of this past Tuesday. His name was Dr. Bruce E. Ivins. The Los Angeles Times reporting this morning, NBC News confirming tonight, that the Justice Department was preparing to file criminal charges against him for the 2001 anthrax attacks. Dr. Ivins dying Tuesday at Frederick Memorial Hospital in Maryland, reportedly after taking a massive dose of prescription Tylenol with codeine. His lawyer today asserting his client's innocence in a statement, quote, "For 6 years, Dr. Ivins fully cooperated with the investigation, assisting the government in every way that was asked of him. We assert his innocence in these killings and would have established that at trial. The relentless pressure of accusation and innuendo takes its toll in different ways on different people, as has already been seen in this investigation. In Dr. Ivins' case, it led to his untimely death." In Frederick, Maryland, his neighbors stunned. But in court documents last month, a therapist saying that Dr. Ivins, quote, has a history of homicidal threats, asking for judges' orders to keep him away from her. In June, another Fort Detrick scientist, Stephen Hatfill, who had been the chief suspect in the anthrax attacks, finally and officially exonerated and receiving a $5,820,000 settlement from the government. Mr. Ivins, having helped the FBI with its investigation of the anthrax attacks by analyzing the samples of the substance through his work as a leading expert at the elite U.S. Army Bioweapons Lab at Fort Detrick in Maryland, about 50 miles northwest of Washington. Shortly after the 9/11 attacks, of course, anthrax-laced letters are having arrived here at NBC News, at the Capitol Hill offices of then Senator Daschle and Senator Leahy, and at the company that owns the National Enquirer. Former Senator Daschle saying today that the FBI owes it to the country to provide some accounting of their investigation and their expectations for a successful conclusion. In the wake of the apparent suicide of an alleged suspect in the anthrax attacks, new questions being raised about the extent to which the attacks were used to argue for the invasion of Iraq. On October 18th, 2001, a United States senator having raised that very possibility with David Letterman.
How are things going in Afghanistan now?
I think we're doing fine. I think we'll do fine. The second phase, if I could just make it very quickly, the second phase is Iraq. There is some indication, and I don't have the conclusions, but some of this anthrax may, and I emphasize may, have come from Iraq.
Oh, is that right?
If that may be the case, then that's when some tough decisions are going to have to be made.
That the anthrax used in the letters had come from a U.S. government lab, that it was our own weaponized anthrax that was used in these letters. So Dr. Stephen Hatfill was basically, his life was destroyed by the FBI. They publicly denounced him on TV. They said he was a person of interest, which is not a valid term. It's meaningless. You can't go into a court and say, I accuse him of being a person of interest. The judge will say, get out of here. That's a null term. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a signal to the media, go look at this person. Go pay attention over there. Pay no attention to this other man behind the curtain. Go look at Dr. Stephen Hatfill. They tore his life apart, trashed his home, were constantly searching, drained a pond near his home on this ludicrous idea that Hatfill had possibly built a submersible glove box platform with which to work with the anthrax, which is nonsense for anybody who knows about working with anhydrous particleized biological materials. So they did all this. Stephen Hatfill, bore up under it, survived, and eventually sued the U.S. government when it was obvious that he had nothing to do with the anthrax letters, and settled for $5.5 million. Okay. Apparently the FBI, embarrassed because they had not gotten the right guy, were going after this Bruce Ivins, and they were giving him the same treatment. Now, they did not expose him to the press because they didn't want him to come back and sue. But same thing. The FBI was constantly searching his property. They went into his home. They took his kid's iPod to make sure Osama bin Laden wasn't living inside there, and made his life a living hell, and apparently, it is claimed, drove him to suicide, although there is some doubt that it really was a suicide. And now that Bruce is dead and cannot defend himself, the media is saying this had to be the Anthrax killer, and we can close the case and go away. Meanwhile, according to the Hartford Courant, the security systems at Fort Detrick and the biological weapons laboratory there actually caught somebody else going into that storage area where those the anthrax strain that was used in the letters was kept without authorization after being fired from his job over a racially motivated attack on an Egyptian co-worker. This man's name is Dr. Philip Zach, and to the best of anybody's knowledge, not only has he never been subjected to the kind of harassment that Ivins and Hatfield were, he's still working in the U.S. biological weapons establishment. Last I heard, he was out at Dugway Proving Ground.